Part 12. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 111. Chapter 111 Much better than Luo scumbag. You are. At this moment, Arian felt that something was wrong. The temperature suddenly dropped tonight. There is also some food here, including Miss Sue's coat and blanket. Please leave it to her. He handed it directly to her. Seeing that she was still in a daze, he stuffed it into her hand, then turned around and left. Since the mission was to be delivered, he did not necessarily need to see his wife. Hey, you! Arian, who had recovered her senses, was busy calling someone, but this person was tall and had long legs, and he had already entered the elevator in 3 or 2 steps. Carrying things with a confused look on her face, she returned to the door of the laboratory and saw Su-Yun still sitting there, observing the samples intently. Takeaway is here. Standing at the door, she shouted. Su-Yun turned around when she heard the voice and saw her standing there dragging 2 big bags. She was very surprised. Aren't you going to wash your face? Why did you order so many takeaways? You are quite efficient. Which food delivery place is so fast? She probably hasn't been there for a few minutes. I didn't order it, it was sent by your flower protector. After a while, she suddenly figured it out. In the middle of the night, she had clothes and food. Who else could care so much and send so many things except her flower protector? What kind of flower protector? Su-Yun didn't know why. She took one of the bags and opened it and took a look. She found that it was her own coat and a fleece blanket. She immediately guessed who had sent these things. But it's not like we agreed not to disclose the relationship. He just showed up in the company in such a big way. Even now, there is no guarantee that he won't meet other people in the company. Where are the others? He said while looking out. Let's go. After waving her hand, Arian confirmed her thoughts when she saw her reaction. It's really him. You covered it so tightly, I thought you had 3 heads and 6 arms. It's not surprising at all. But at least he knows how to care about you, and he is much better than the scumbag Luo. Su-Yun curled her lips. There's no comparison. Having seen the beauty of vast mountains and rivers, there is nothing to miss about dry wells filled with sewage and smelly mud, and there is no comparison at all. Luo Yuanhang is better than Si Yao. Sorry, he doesn't deserve it. Seeing the disdain on her face and the eagerness to protect her husband, Wu Arian couldn't help but laugh out loud. That's right, there's no comparison. Although I think he looks a bit fierce, looks a bit stupid, and talks and acts stupidly. Silly, but just because I can give you food and clothing in the middle of the night, I have to add 120 points. Su-Yun. Si Yao's aura enveloped, dignified, and elegant appearance flashed through his mind, but his ears were filled with Yan's description of him, fierce looking? Looking dumb? Doing something stupid? These adjectives are definitely referring to Si Yao. Is there something wrong with her eyes, or is there something wrong with her aesthetics? Arian, are you sure there's nothing wrong with your aesthetics? Wu Arian. Sister Yun, even if I use harsh words, you can't attack me personally. I don't object to anything else you say about me. My aesthetics is absolutely fine. She carefully thought about the man she had just met below, and felt that the description is quite accurate. Su-Yun thought about it carefully and felt that maybe everyone has different standards for aesthetics, and she cannot force others to agree with her. Perhaps Arian's aesthetics is relatively niche? Forget it, you're hungry too, come and eat. Seeing that there was still steaming takeout inside, I happened to be hungry, so I simply took it to the table outside and ate together. She was no longer obsessed with this issue, but it was obvious that Arian still couldn't get over the phrase "Are you sure there's nothing wrong with your aesthetics?" Even though she sat down and held her chopsticks, she still couldn't help but look up and said, "What do you think of my description, isn't that right?" Su-Yun. Okay, tell me, what is so stupid about what he says and does? After thinking about it, Soo-yoon felt that there are aesthetic deviations in things like appearance, but Si Yao's behavior seems to have nothing to do with the word stupid, right? I asked him who he was and what he was doing here. He held it in for a long time and then said that he was from the company. Think about it, it was me he met here. It didn't take long for me to come here and he recognized everyone here. I can tell at a glance that he is not, let alone other people. He is trying to deceive me with just this little trick, what a fool. Yan analyzed this clearly and logically. You said he came to find you, so he came to you openly and made up a reason that he was from the company. Such a lame excuse. After finishing his rant, he looked at Soo-yoon and said nothing. He was afraid that she would be angry and carefully explained, but, this may also mean that he is honest and can't tell a lie. How did she know that Soo-yoon was recombining the audio and video of what she said with Si Yao's people, imagining how Si Yao would say these words? Well, he is indeed from the company, but not many people below have seen him, such as Zhao Xian, who has only seen him a few times, let alone other ordinary employees. Yan has just arrived, so he doesn't know him. It is even more reasonable. Well, hearing her say this, her behavior is indeed a bit silly. What about the fierce appearance? After thinking about it, she asked again. Even if this sentence caused a misunderstanding, is there really such a big difference in the perception of appearance? To be honest, Sister Yoon, don't be angry. After a moment of hesitation, Aryan tentatively made a statement in advance. After all, he is Sister Yun's new boyfriend. He has been judging others for a long time, which seems to be a bit unjustifiable. What's more, he is still eating takeout from others at the moment. Say, I'm not angry. Soo-yoon nodded, but Soo-yoon disagreed. It was just a casual chat, and she also knew that Yan actually meant no harm. The reason why she asked in detail was just out of curiosity about what kind of person Si Yao was in the eyes of others. She has read many magazines and media introductions before. Regarding Si Yao, they all describe him as vigorous, decisive, and ruthless. As for his appearance, he can be described as a national husband. No matter how much the internet complains about his style of doing things and his cold-blooded manner, no one has ever questioned his appearance. Isn't it true that I am increasingly addicted to his beauty and willing to fall? In comparison, Aryan was really a special case, and she really wanted to hear about it. Actually, biting the end of her chopsticks, Aryan recalled the man's face. He looks pretty good. Soo-yoon's eyebrows twitched. Is it okay? If you look closely at his facial features, he is quite handsome, but his face is a bit too square. If he were thinner, he would probably be more handsome. He is very tall and looks quite strong. This is good and can protect you in the future. Squinting her eyes slightly, Soo-yoon compared Si Yao's face with her description. Was it too square? Sturdy? Lose weight? Are you sure we are talking about the same person? She had to doubt. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 112. Chapter 112. Mine, don't want it? She asked this question, which also confused Aryan. Wait. How many boyfriends do you have? Soo-yoon glared at her, and Woo Aryan shut up instantly. He frowned and thought for a while. If we are not talking about the same person, then the person who came to deliver things just now is not your boyfriend. Impossible. In the middle of the night, carrying so many things, including your personal things, you didn't even say a word if you wanted to give it to me. Just give it to me and leave. While listening, Soo-yoon probably had an idea, and there was a vague suspicion in her heart. She glanced at Yan and said, "Wait a minute." She took out her mobile phone from her pocket. She must have no photos of Su Feng. Unexpectedly, she couldn't find them online. It was quite mysterious. Glancing at Arian, who was staring at her, she opened the WeChat dialog box and sent a message to Sci-Yao, "Give me a photo of Su Feng." If I guessed correctly, it was probably Su Feng who came just now, not Sci-Yao. Think about it, if he came here in person, he would never give the things to Arian and then leave. This is not his style. "Wait a minute," she said. Su-Yun was waiting for the response after she sent the message. Sci-Yao asked Su Feng to come and deliver something to her. She was definitely not asleep at the moment. What she didn't know was that not only was someone not sleeping at the moment, but he was also on the road outside not far from the laboratory. The black Porsche lay there quietly, and he sat in the car and closed his eyes to meditate. Knowing that she would be late tonight and couldn't sleep alone at home, and the temperature suddenly dropped, I simply came over to give her something. He knew the importance of the experiment in its final stage, so he did not disturb her and only asked Su Feng to send the things up. The phone rang twice. He opened his eyes, glanced at the text on the screen, and frowned. Su Feng, who was sitting in the driver's seat, didn't know it at all, but his instinctive vigilance still made him feel a sudden chill on his back. He subconsciously glanced at the rearview mirror, and when he met the boss's deep and unpredictable eyes, he was stunned. "Mr. Si." After staring at him for a while, Sci-Yao looked at the phone screen again, convinced that his little wife was asking for a photo of his assistant, not a photo of himself. His eyes darkened and his voice became even darker. "Su Feng, turn around. Su Feng. Turn around," he repeated it again, and he could already hear the obvious displeasure in his voice. Su Feng didn't know why, but he still obeyed the order and turned around. Then he saw his boss raised his cell phone and pointed it at him. Click. "Su Feng. Mr. Si." A layer of cold sweat rose up on his back. Why did Mr. Si take a photo of him? Could it be that there was some special mission that was very dangerous, and he was left as a memorial in advance? Soon, Su-Yun's phone flashed. She picked it up and opened it to see Su Feng's mugshot. It can be seen that the distance for taking pictures is very close, and it is very clear. Even the stiff lines on Su Feng's face are so clear. This person is really not suitable for taking pictures. However, if you take a closer look, it matches Arian's description very well. She has a square face, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. She looks a bit fierce. Feeling more and more that his judgment was correct, he turned around and put the photo in front of Arian. "Is it him you are talking about?" Looking over, Arian nodded repeatedly. "Yes, that's him." "I'm right, right? You still said he's not your boyfriend." "It's not him." He shook his head, sighed and continued eating. "What the hell? What a mistake. Thinking about how I just compared Yan's words with Yao's, I was really stupid." However, he replied to the message so quickly, and the photo was obviously taken live. Then click on the photo to see the background behind Su Feng. Although it is a little blurry, it is not difficult to tell that he is in a car. He is. Before she could figure out the reason, another message was sent. "Do you want more?" With 3 simple words. Su-Yun thought he meant whether you wanted Su Feng's photo, so she quickly replied, "No, that's fine." Why does she want so many photos of Su Feng? She just wants to show them to Arian to make sure they are not talking about something different. "Are you sure you don't want to use it?" "Mine, don't want it?" Ft, cough. Seeing the last one, Su-Yun spat out a mouthful of water, choking and coughing repeatedly. Although it was just a cold mobile phone screen and just a line of text, she could see an aura of sadness. What does "mine, don't want it" mean? Is this complaining that she didn't ask for his photo? "Are you okay? You still choked?" After drinking water, Arian quickly patted her back to calm her down, and was very curious. "Who are you chatting with? By the way, who was that person just now if it wasn't your boyfriend?" How come I'm sending you something so late? Do you still have photos? The more she thought about it, the more suspicious she felt. Something seemed not quite right, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Soo-yoon coughed and waved her hands, trying to comfort the old man over there first. Picked up the phone and quickly replied, I have you as a whole, what do you want with those photos? A certain CEO was sitting in the car, reading the text on his phone, and a smile finally appeared on his tight lips. In the front seat, Su Feng looked at his boss from the rear-view mirror fearfully. Sometimes his eyes were staring at him deeply, sometimes his face was serious and thoughtful, and now, he was, smiling again? What a weird plot. I'll take your photo myself when I get back, Soo-yoon added, fearing that the jealous king wouldn't comfort her enough. Yao was finally satisfied, okay. Soo-yoon breathed a sigh of relief when she saw the word good. That meant her emotions had calmed down. She felt something behind her. When she turned her head, she saw a huge head and was startled. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Arian smacked her lips, with a sour expression on her face. I didn't expect you to be so disgusting. Oh my, I can handle it. I'm such a mouthful of dog food. As he spoke, he wiped his mouth, as if he was savoring the taste of dog food. He was amused by her appearance, stood up and patted her head casually, okay. Get to work as soon as you're full. You clean up here, and I'll go see if the results are out. Okay, I'll take care of it. Let's finish the work quickly so that we can go back and take photos safely, Arian teased her and said without giving up, by the way, why did you send me the photo of that person just now? You should show me your boyfriend's photo. It seems that the intensity of the work I gave you is too small, leaving you so idle. Soo-yoon looked back at her while holding onto the doorframe. I've been working overtime with you all night, just think of it as overtime benefits. While cleaning up the garbage on the desktop, Arian remembered looking at the dialog box on her phone screen just now and couldn't help but said, by the way, who is Yao, huh? Why does this name sound so familiar? Soo-yoon. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 113. Chapter 113. I admitted it on my own initiative. Arian didn't think about it for a moment, so she got up and threw the garbage into the trash can. When she walked in front of Soo-yoon, she was still trying to remember. She just felt that the name was too familiar. Since it was so familiar, she should know it, but she suddenly couldn't remember it. Looking at her thinking hard, Soo-yoon pondered for a moment, raised her hand and patted her shoulder. It's the president of Uniasia. Oh, yes, I remembered it when you said that, it's the president of Huanya. The last word stuck in her throat. She looked at Soo-yoon in shock, her eyes full of disbelief. Soo-yoon was not surprised by her reaction, it was completely expected. Actually, let alone other people, when I think back to that time, I not only admire my own boldness, but I am even more surprised that Yao agreed to her proposal without hesitation. Even to this day, she can't quite figure out why he agreed to her, helped her, and pampered her like this, but what is certain is that today, her title as MRSSI not fake. Huanya. President. After swallowing hard, Arian finally finished her sentence. This could not describe the shock that this news and this identity brought to her. She only knew that Soo-yoon had found a new boyfriend, but she didn't know that the identity of this new boyfriend was so shocking. Sister Yoon, you. Staring at her closely, Arian choked out a sentence, you are not his mistress, are you? Soo-yoon. He raised his hand and gave her a slap in the face to let her know what he was talking about. Who do you think I am? Who do you think I am? What are you thinking? Ah, it hurts. I said the wrong thing, don't be angry, I'm sorry, Arian screamed in pain and quickly hugged her arm to apologize, I'm so surprised and shocked. President of Huanya, ah, what kind of diamond is that? No, no, the king is a single aristocrat, how could it be him? Sister Yun, are you telling the truth, is he your boyfriend, are you really dating? It's not that Wu Arian is too gossipy, or that she looks down on Su Yun, it's just that these two people are connected and it really takes some time to digest. Who is the president of Huanya? He is a figure who almost only lives in legends. She has never thought that she would have anything to do with such a person in her life. But now, Su Yun tells her that her boyfriend is him. Originally, Su Yun didn't intend to talk about it, but today's little episode accidentally made Arian see it. Even if she doesn't talk about it now, one day in the future, she will remember who is Si Yao. At that time, say it would be more troublesome if not allowed. It would be better to admit it yourself first. Anyway, Arian is a trustworthy person and will not talk nonsense everywhere. Yeah, she nodded, but don't tell anyone else about this, we don't plan to make it public. Oh, Arian agreed readily at first, but after hearing what happened next, she couldn't help but ask, why? Aren't you in a normal relationship? Why don't you plan to make your relationship public? Doesn't he want to admit it to you, is he serious about you? Is he unwilling to make it public? A series of bombing questions made Su Yun's head go crazy. Ah, I really regretted not changing the name. I really didn't expect that she would find out. However, just for Arian, the reaction is already so big. She is still by his side all year round. If other people know about it, you can imagine how explosive this news will be. It proves more and more that her relationship with Si Yao cannot be made public for the time being. No, she pressed Arian's shoulders with both hands and said patiently, listen to me, you also know the special nature of his identity. With my current status, if it is made public, you should know how big the impact will be. You see, it's already hard for you to accept, let alone other people. By then, just dealing with all kinds of gossip and news will be too much for me, and I will have no time and energy to do what I want to do. It's not that I can't accept it, I just didn't expect. Arian was busy explaining, why couldn't she accept it? If it was true, if Su Yun could be happy, it would be too late for her to be happy. I understand, I understand. But others won't think like you do. Su Yun interrupted her and said, you also know his identity and what he will face if it is made public. Before that, I want to work harder and stand higher, at least on the same level as him. Listening to her explanation, Arian finally understood it slowly and nodded numbly, Sister Yun, I believe you, you have the strength. Su Yun patted her shoulder and turned to check the experimental results. The beep on the computer has already sounded, the data results are being printed out, and the entire laboratory is filled with a faint fragrance. The fragrance is permeating the air, which is a welcome signal of success. Bent down, she looked at the data on the computer intently. She looked at it very carefully, while Arian walked over and looked at a few samples. Both of them devoted themselves to their work. After a moment, successful, successful. Arian shouted excitedly, Sister Yun, it's successful. Yes. The data results have also met the requirements, and the fragrance at each stage is also the effect I want. It's a success, it's really a success, she was also very happy. Compared with Arian's excitement, her inner emotions were surging, it's even more indescribable. This is the first new perfume she has developed and concocted by herself since leaving Wulan, and it is a bold attempt. She has a hunch that this perfume will definitely shine in this year's annual competition. Great, so many days of hard work finally paid off. Save the samples and experimental data, put them in the filing cabinet and lock them, we can get off work. Looking at the time, although it was already early in the morning, it was still too late to go back now. Okay, I'll go right away. Arian is still very efficient at work. She is skilled in packaging and preservation, packing away what needs to be packed, and carefully storing the precious samples, for fear of making any mistakes. Standing up, Soo-yoon turned off other power sources in the laboratory, and went to wash her hands. When she came out again, Yan had already put everything away. The two of them saw unconcealable joy on each other's faces, which was the sense of victory of fighting side by side. Walking side by side toward the elevator, Arian took her mobile phone and looked for a taxi app. It's so late. I don't know if I can still get a taxi. Let's take one together. It will be safer and save money. What do you think, woolen cloth? End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 114. Chapter 114 was already radiant. Soo-yoon didn't answer. She had already seen a car parked not far across the road. At this time, on this section of road, the car parked there was really eye-catching, especially when the rear door had been opened, and the person who got out of the back seat was tall and tall. He only stood for a moment and turned towards her. The direction came straight over. Sister Yoon, seeing that she didn't reply, Arian called her again. As a result, following her line of sight, she saw a man walking in their direction. He frowned and watched him getting closer and closer. Even though it was already late at night, under the dim light of the street lamp, his figure and facial features could still be clearly seen. How should I put it? Yan felt that this was just like the kind of beautiful picture in a literary movie with tricky angles, full bloom, and aperture. The man was obviously an ordinary person, but it was as if he was surrounded by a halo. People can't take their eyes away. Even if there was no introduction, even if she had never met him before, she could guess who this person was from Soo-yoon's reaction, the unwavering gaze between the two, and the shocking news that had just been slightly supplemented. You are indeed here, Soo-yoon said. When she saw the thing Soo Feng sent, how quickly he responded to her message, and the background of the car, she guessed that he might be not far downstairs in the laboratory, but he was focused on the final stage of the experiment at that time. There is really no time to distract from other things. Why don't you wear the clothes I brought for you? Seeing that she was only wearing a long-sleeved shirt, Yao frowned in disapproval and took off his coat and put it on her. I was busy just now and didn't care about it now, I probably don't need it anymore. After saying this, Soo-yoon tugged on the clothes he put on her body, which still carried his body temperature. It was really warm. Can you go back? Yao asked. Soo-yoon nodded, then turned to look at Arian. Her mouth was slightly open, and she stood blankly to the side, looking straight at Yao, looking like she had been shocked again. Soo-yoon was a little funny, but she thought this was a normal reaction. Thinking about it, I am also stupid. How can I suspect that personal aesthetics are different? We may have different opinions on beautiful things, but the perception of beauty is definitely not so different. Yao, he is inherently radiant. Arian, let's come together, it's so late and it's hard to take a taxi. I'll take you back on the way, she said directly. Being asked this question, Arian shook her head repeatedly after coming back to her senses. No, 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 I can just call a car myself. I won't be your light bulb. You go ahead and don't worry about me, really. What nonsense are you talking about? It's so late at night. Can I trust you to be here alone? Soo-yoon put her arm around her shoulders and walked towards the car without any explanation. Besides, on such a dark day, there is no one. Aren't light bulbs great? Arian couldn't break free and was forced to follow her in the direction of the car. On the contrary, someone who was left behind looked helplessly at the backs of the two women in front of them, and could only lift up his feet and follow them. The car door opened. It was indeed much warmer inside the car than outside. Soo Feng tilted his head and said, "Husband." Out of the corner of his eye, he accurately looked at Wu Arian, who got into the car first, and was stunned for a moment. "It's you," Arian shouted, pointing at him. I immediately covered my mouth again. Now I am on someone else's territory. Her mouth was covered, but her eyes were wide open. She stared at Su Feng's profile. Many lines flashed through her mind, and she quickly figured it out. No wonder it was him who delivered the things, no wonder he made a mistake. Since he is the driver of President Sida, it is natural for the CEO to deliver the things. As a result, I thought he was the real master and made a big mistake. "Assistant Su, thank you just now." After sitting down, Su Yun thanked her directly. She didn't see Su Feng just now. Anyway, if she asked someone to deliver something so late, she always had to say thank you. "You're welcome, Madam," Su Feng said lightly, glanced at Yan, turned to the front, and put his hands on the steering wheel. "By the way, this is my assistant and my best friend, Wu Arian." She thought about it and should make a formal introduction to the two of them. "Arian, this is Yao's assistant, Su Feng." Yan nodded, seeing him looking straight ahead without turning around. She suddenly leaned over and patted him on the shoulder. "I'm sorry." Su Feng was startled when he was unexpectedly slapped. He half turned his body to look at her. "What? Just now, I didn't know who you were. I thought you were a commercial spy who sneaked in. I wasn't too polite to you." "I'm sorry." She has a carefree personality, but she is not stingy. "My attitude just now was not good, but it was because I regarded him as an imaginary enemy. Now that I have found out that it was a misunderstanding, I should apologize. What's more, the takeout I just ate was delivered by someone else." Su Feng probably didn't expect that she would apologize, and since a girl greeted him so generously and even took the initiative to apologize, it really couldn't be justified for him not to respond. Just not quite used to such a scene, he nodded stiffly. "No, it doesn't matter." Yan grinned and showed a big bright smile. Su Feng. Averting his eyes, he sat upright and held the steering wheel, his back straight. At this moment, Yao had already gotten into the car and closed the door. "Let's go." Su Yun turned her head and asked Arian, "Where is your new address after moving? You said before that it is not far from the company." "It's not far," she reported the address casually. Su Yun didn't sound familiar with it. "Do you know Su Feng? Go over there first and send Yan home, and then we'll go back." "I know." Su Feng nodded and started the car. After the car started driving, Arian spontaneously moved closer to the car door, turned her head and looked out the window, and stopped talking. It is already embarrassing to be a light bulb. Light bulbs should have the consciousness of light bulbs. It is a pity that the person involved did not fully understand the painstaking efforts of her light bulb. Su Yun was afraid that she would be embarrassed in this environment, so she took the initiative to approach her direction and hold her arm. "Yan, I have sorted out the materials in the past 2 days. It's okay, you can have a good rest. I may prepare a new product later, and I will discuss the general ideas with you then." Arian nodded without saying a word. Even if she didn't look over there, she could already feel the powerful aura. "I'm thinking about changing my thinking and changing the target consumer groups. What do you think? I think since I'm off work, we shouldn't discuss business matters anymore." Yao's rich voice sounded beside her, and he pulled her over. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Ye. Chapter 115. Chapter 115. This flattery is really invincible. Su Yun was unprepared and the car happened to be turning, so she stumbled and fell into his arms. Wu Arian. Hand holding the handle with one hand and half covering his face with the other hand. "I didn't see it, I didn't see anything." Su Yun's face was hot, and she pushed him gently to sit up straight, but Yao took advantage of the situation and held her waist, letting her lean against him. leaving no room for discussion. Is the new product successful? He asked calmly. Sure enough, this sentence successfully diverted her attention. She was instantly excited when she mentioned her profession. Yes. You don't know, it's exactly the effect I wanted, even better than I expected. It's great. It's really, really perfect. That's worth celebrating, he added. Yes, we want to celebrate. Thinking of this, he turned to look in the direction of Arian. Arian, let's make an appointment to go out for a good meal, or go to the Cantonese restaurant last time. I remember you really like his food. Okay. Let's do what we did last time. Before she could finish her words, she could clearly feel an unusual aura. With just a brief glance at the big boss, the hairs on her back stood up. He changed his mind and said, it's just, not bad. I don't care, haha. Sure enough, a light bulb is not a good thing. It emits heat and light. It not only illuminates others, but also burns itself. It's okay. I remember you were full of praise. By the way, call Sister Zhao too. She has been working very hard recently. After thinking about it for a while, she was about to start preparing a plan. Haha, it's alright. Holding her chin in one hand, Arian looked out the window, but even so, she could see the CEO's ice-like face in the reflection of the window. Why? I didn't expect the CEO to be so jealous, but, she is a woman. You won't even want to be jealous of her. Wu Arian was on pins and needles at the moment, but it was impossible to stop the car at this time, so she could only continue to endure it, hoping that the car would go faster, even faster. Thinking like this, she pinned her hopes on the man in front of her who was controlling the steering wheel. From her perspective, Su Fen was driving the car intently, with a resolute and determined profile. Maybe it was because of the light, but he didn't look so nervous. Very fierce. Why are you not in high spirits? Su Yun frowned, feeling that Arian was very cold towards her. I think you are in a good mood. The strength in his hand became a little stronger, and Si Yao lowered his head to look at her. Tell me, who else do you want to invite to celebrate together? No one else. Arian and I were mainly involved in the research and development of this new product. Sister Zhao also contributed a lot. She should be invited, and others. I wanted to say no, but after seeing someone's meaningful and threatening gaze, I finally realized it belatedly. But, she showed a flattering smile, you can't do it either. CEO Si Da's face turned dark instantly. Especially when Su Feng coughed softly from the front, his face became even darker. Wu Arian covered her face with her hands and pretended to yawn. She couldn't help but want to laugh in her heart. If people outside heard that the president of Huanya was told no, or his girlfriend said no, I don't know how it would spread. How to write it? Su Yun is not stupid either. She said it smoothly, and soon realized that there was an ambiguity in her words, and immediately said, no, I mean, it's not appropriate to call you to celebrate in public, and it's not convenient for you to show up. Someone still has a dark face, obviously very unhappy. Su Yun immediately continued to coax, of course, my success is inseparable from your help. Your contribution is the greatest. You are the unknown and unknown hero behind the scenes. It is my greatest honor to get your support and help. I extremely proud of you. Si Yao. Er Yan. Su Feng, cough cough cough. If it weren't for the special circumstances, Arian would really want to applaud her good partner. This flattery is really invincible. But to be honest, this is the first time she has seen Su Yun like this. Su Yun and Luo Yuanhang were not like this before. They didn't communicate much, and they all revolved around work. Occasionally, Luo Yuanhang would say a few nice words. If you coax her, she will act coquettishly, but it's not as natural, relaxing and enjoyable as it is now. She peeked over and saw that Si Yao's originally dark face had turned cloudy, and was suspiciously a little red. Tisk, didn't expect him to be coaxed into shyness. Where did you learn that glib tongue? Si Yao raised his hand and scratched her face, and Si Yao's voice softened. Even if a new product passes the test, it will still take some time before it is officially launched. I want to say, since if you want to rest and celebrate, it's better to go for a walk and relax. Go for a walk, where to go? Soo-yoon had no such idea. After all, for so long, she has been repeatedly developing new products, succeeding, resting for 2 days, continuing with the next idea, collecting raw materials, trying, and creating new products, such a cyclical process day after day. The idea at that time was also very simple. While you are young and have inspiration and ideas, develop a few more. Even if there are failures, there will still be successes. Wilan can stabilize and grow, and Luo Yuan Hang can relax. When the time comes, when 2 people get married, she doesn't have to work so hard anymore. She doesn't have to rush to work and make progress. She can slowly do what she likes and wants to do, and live a stable life. At that time, my thoughts were simple, and I thought that Luo Yuan Hang and she had the same idea. I never thought that I would become a tool for others to use. It's not decided yet. If you have any ideas or where you want to go, you can tell me and I will make arrangements for you, he said naturally. Wu Arian on the side was a little excited. Us? You don't want to go? Si Yao nodded. That's okay. Whether you go or not, we respect your personal choice. If you don't want to. I do, I'm so willing, he nodded repeatedly, fearing that this right would be revoked. Yan is so happy. This is a treatment I have never enjoyed in Wilan for so many years. She didn't expect that one day she would be able to travel for work like this. Even if it was just a drop-in, she would be very happy. When she saw Si Yao's cold eyes towards her, she thought she would be retaliated against. Unexpectedly, not only was she not retaliated, but she also did such a good deed. He was really someone who did great things. Look at his magnanimity. Such magnanimity. The car slowly stopped and Si Yao glanced outside. You're here. Ah, yes, I'm here. I'll go back first. Arian looked out and her attitude was much more natural than when she first got in the car. Thank you, Mr. Si, for your hard work. Soo-yoon, it's too dark outside, I'll take you there. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 116. Chapter 116. Are you jealous? Arian was very conscious this time and immediately refused Sanlian. No, 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 I can do it. Soo-yoon. I glanced out the car window. Although it was dark, it was obvious that this was not at the entrance of the community. There was an alley opposite. I guess it was in the alley, or through it. I didn't feel reassured even thinking about it. Su Feng, when you send her back, you must send her to the doorstep. As if sensing her worry, Si Yao took the initiative to say, go back quickly. Su Feng, yes. He parked the car and unbuckled his seat belt and got out of the car. Arian was very flattered. No, no, no need. In this car, Su Feng had already gone around to her side and opened the car door. Miss Wu, please. Having already been brought here, she could no longer refuse, so she had no choice but to get out of the car. Then, I'll go back first. Sister Yun, you and Mr. Si should have a rest early. Yes, Su Yun nodded. Seeing her and Su Feng walking away, she realized what was wrong. You and Mr. Si should go to bed early. Turning her head, she saw Si Yao staring at her deeply, which made her a little strange. Are you jealous? These words were said with a bit of cautious probing. Unexpectedly, Si Yao snorted heavily. Why did you just notice it? Suyun wailed, no, Arian is a woman. What's wrong with the woman? Can't women be jealous? You care about her very much. You are celebrating and escorting her to my place, can't you? He opened his hand and shook it in his direction. The tone sounded resentful. For a moment, Suyun was dumbfounded. He is quite aggrieved. That's different. What's the difference? Yao paused, or is she really more important to you than me? Unreasonable men are so scary. Especially the one who is jealous now is like a child who is messing around without getting candy. Suyun laughed, it is indeed more important. The moment his complexion darkened, his hands quickly passed over his neck, forming a circle and then pulling it down. He went up to him and pressed his lips against his lips, but, it's you who is more important. The president's full fire disappeared with her words. Hand clasped the back of her head with one hand, he deepened the kiss fiercely, letting her taste the sour taste of vinegar. Su Feng took a few steps and then stopped. He waited for Arian to walk a little further before continuing to follow her, always keeping an equal distance, not too close, but not too far either. Arian lowered her head and could just see the top of his shadow, which was quite solid. To be honest, I am a little scared of the road I walk every day after get off work. Although nothing has happened since I moved here, it is still a bit out of the way and very quiet. Occasionally, a cat would rummage through the trash can, which would startle her. But today, because someone is with me, there is no fear in my heart. It's not too far from the company, and the rent is very cheap. The only drawback is that it has to pass through such an alley. She didn't think it was a big problem, so she rented it. Stopping at the top of the stairs, Arian turned around and said, I'm here, thank you. Su Feng stopped and said, no need. Well. Arian scratched her head and smiled sheepishly, they are still waiting, so I won't invite you to sit up. I'll treat you to tea another day. Su Feng still said two words, no need. Then, goodbye. She didn't know what to say to such an answer. She waved her hand, and when she saw that he was still standing there, she turned and went upstairs. Turning at the top of the stairs, I stopped and looked down. I found that he was still standing there, so I waved my hand, go back. He said this, but his body remained motionless. Arian had no choice but to stop trying to persuade him. She hurried upstairs and tiptoed home for fear of waking her mother. Then she went back to her room and turned on the lamp. After thinking about it, she looked downstairs from the window. Under the dim street light, the tall figure was still there, and you could even see him raising his head. It was probably when he saw the light in her window turn on that he turned around and walked slowly to the other end of the alley. Looking at that figure gradually disappearing, Arian felt warm in her heart. After a suppressed low gasp, everything finally stopped. Rosen turned over and lay on his back, his face extremely pale. Pull up the quilt to cover herself, Zhang Shiwei secretly breathed a sigh of relief, glad that this time was not too long, otherwise she would really be unable to bear it. Rosen calling his name softly, she said softly, it may be inconvenient for me to come here these 2 days. The lab is almost finished. I can't make excuses, and neither can Luo Yuan Hang. I'm so busy, I'm afraid. Are you that afraid of him? Rosen glanced sideways at her and got out of bed. But he was not wearing any clothes. He just pulled a big towel and wrapped it around his waist, revealing his too slender waist. Without looking, Zhang Shiwei knew that he had lost weight recently, and she would have such intimate contact almost every few days. She was already familiar with his body and knew how thin he had become now. In addition to boredom, he also felt anxious and worried. After all, he might not be able to rely on such a big tree for long. It's not that I'm afraid of him, I just don't want to break the current balance sitting up while wrapped in a quilt. Zhang Shiwei watched him walk to the sofa and sit down, and laid out his things again and spread them out on the table. You and I both know that everyone gets what he wants. Since that's the case, I won't interfere with you and try to satisfy you what you want. You shouldn't destroy what I want, right? Is marrying him what you want? He smiled sarcastically. In his eyes, he didn't think she would be a peaceful woman who could care for her husband and raise children. At least for now, there is no better choice than him. She was also very honest, just like for you right now, I am just a relatively good choice, right? Turning his head to look at her, Rosen smiled wickedly, non-committally. Hold your head and put the rolled paper tube in front of your nose, and then get closer. Having a nausea. Zhang Shiwei looked away from him, got out of bed and went to the bathroom. She closed the door and pressed her chest with her hands to suppress the nausea. She rinsed her mouth and was about to turn around when she felt a stinging pain in her lower abdomen, and then a stream of heat rushed down. She was stunned for 2 seconds, and immediately lowered her head when she realized what was happening. She saw a small pool of frightening red on the ground between her feet. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 117. Chapter 117. Do you plan to have this child? Her mind went blank for a moment, and Zhang Shiwei suddenly panicked. Although she has always been very repulsive and hesitant about not wanting this child, she never thought that he might take the initiative to leave her. It has always been her choice whether to have it or not, but now it seems a little out of control. There was vague movement outside. She came back to her senses and didn't care much. She quickly turned on the faucet and washed away the blood stains on the floor. Then she rinsed herself carefully. When she wiped it with paper, she found that there was nothing there anymore. The blood was gone, and he breathed a sigh of relief. However, after this little episode, she didn't dare to stay any longer. She immediately opened the bathroom door and came out to get dressed, and was about to leave in a hurry. Rosen was still immersed in that illusory happiness, his eyes were misty, and when he heard the voice, he looked over and saw her opening the door. He frowned and said, "Did I let you go?" "I'm sorry, Rosen, I have something to do and I have to go back right away," she said quickly. "You can leave if you want." He stood up and approached her unsteadily, pressing his hand on the door panel so that she could not open the door. "What about your promise to me?" Zhang Shiwei blinked before remembering what he was talking about. "I have always cared about that matter. Isn't it because I didn't find the opportunity? Don't worry, since I promised you, I will definitely do it." This guy is really a little crazy. His desires in this area are a bit endless and scary. Opportunities must be created. If you keep delaying like this, I will lose my patience. You know the consequences. He smiled when he said this, and passed his hand across her face, and then touched her lips. Zhang Shiwei's back was pressed against the door panel, her heart trembling. Rosen originally had an unstable personality and could usually cope with it, but after he finished knocking out those things, he turned into a lunatic and knew nothing about what he would do. Because of this, she had to leave quickly. Suppressing the fear in her heart, she forced a smile and said, "Of course I know. I know even more that when you are happy, I will be happy. So, you have to give me time to find a chance." Gently pull his arm and slowly pull it down. Letting her pull down his arm, Rosen smiled half-heartedly and lowered his head. "Don't use your little thoughts in front of me. Why wait, be good and I will love you." Huh. Gently touching her lips, Zhang Shiwei shuddered and nodded with a smile. "Of course I know. Then leave first." This time, he didn't stop him and let go. Opened the door and went out immediately. Until she left the hotel, a string in her head was tense. Yes. This Rosen is too dangerous now. He must find a new supporter as soon as possible and get rid of him, and more importantly. Covering her belly with one hand, she reached out and stopped a taxi. "Go to the hospital." After a series of examinations, the doctor sat behind his desk and looked at the data. Then he looked up at her and asked, "Do you plan to have this child?" She pursed her lips and said nothing. "If you want it, you can't have any more, and it's best to be hospitalized for miscarriage." The doctor held the list and said objectively, "If you don't plan to have it, I suggest you have the surgery as soon as possible. The longer you delay, the worse it will be for your body. Not good." Zhang Shiwei, does having have a big impact? She can reject Luo Yuanhang, but how can she reject Rosen? Even if you reject it once or twice, what happens next? This meant that she could do nothing in the past 10 months except lie in bed to protect the pregnancy. And then, when the child was born, she would be faced with caring for her husband and raising her children, or in other words, she would fall into the complicated and mediocre life of a housewife. In life, she knew very well that Luo Yuanhang could not give her the life of a noble lady she wanted. She wanted to fight for it on her own, but now was the most critical time. There would be a competition at the end of the year, and she was determined to win the award. After winning the award, her popularity will inevitably soar. With the help of Rosen and the judges, her future is promising, but if she spends this time, she will spend it in the hospital bed, her body getting heavier day by day. It's scary to think about it. You've already had a threatened miscarriage. Do you think it will have a big impact? He frowned and the doctor's tone became serious. How come you young people don't know how to take care of your bodies? Do you know that early pregnancy is very difficult, it's unstable. It's best not to have at this time. Even if you do, you should be careful. But you have been injured, and more than once, right? It was discovered when he examined her just now, and because of this, the doctor looked at her with a particularly solemn look. Zhang Shiwei's face felt hot. It was still a bit embarrassing to be exposed in front of someone like this, even if that person was a doctor. If I don't want this child, how long will the operation take and will I need to be hospitalized? After thinking about it, she asked again. It was obvious that the doctor was holding back, but he couldn't hold it back and still asked, just to have sex. It's really hard to understand that you can't bear it for several months for the sake of your children? No, I have other reasons. Of course, she immediately denied it. Doctor, I just want to ask, I remember that you can take medicine after the abortion, so can I leave on the same day? Is there any painless one? Also, how long does it take to recover after being aborted? The doctor's face became more and more ugly, and his tone of voice became less gentle. There are indeed two types of medicine and surgery, but your current condition is no longer suitable for medicine. Even if you have surgery, you have to wait 2 days. As for whether you can leave on the same day, and the recovery situation, it depends on your personal constitution. In addition, you must know that all surgeries have risks, and the harm to women's bodies caused by this abortion surgery is inevitable. Your uterus will be traumatized, which may also affect future pregnancies. Are you sure you still want to have this surgery? Although the tone was not good, he told her clearly and responsibly. Zhang Shiwei's fingers tightened, and she clutched her stomach, feeling a faint pain there. It has been a few months anyway. Although she has not yet shown her pregnancy and has not felt any fetal movement, after all, she has been in her belly for so long, and it is impossible to say that she has no feelings at all. However, thinking of the sacrifices she would have to make for this child, she was unwilling to do so. Well, you go back and think about it first, the doctor said. After you think about it, you can decide whether to have this operation. If possible, we do not recommend abortion surgery. After all, it is a small life. No, you discuss it with your lover. Hearing that she had discussed it with her lover, Zhang Shiwei thought of Luo Yuanhang and suddenly made up her mind. No, I want to have surgery, please arrange it. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 118. Chapter 118. Is there something wrong with the formula? Zhang Shiwei thought that it was just a matter of arranging the time for the surgery, but unexpectedly, the doctor prescribed some medicine for her. Hand-holding the prescription form, she was puzzled. Didn't you say that we can't take medicine? Why are you still prescribing medicine? You have inflammation and need treatment before surgery. After a pause, the doctor said in a vague way, in addition, I really can't have recently. Your condition is very bad. If it continues like this, it will affect your health. Of the uterus. She didn't remember much of what the doctor said later. She just felt that they were all words that told her to pay attention. She knew that her body would definitely be unable to bear the torment that Rosen did, but she did not expect that the consequences would be much worse than she imagined. No wonder she has been feeling sore and itchy down there lately, and no wonder she always has that wet and unclean feeling. She thought she had done too much and just rested, but the inflammation was no longer serious. Recalling the doctor's gaze, she felt ashamed. Fortunately, not many people knew her. Take the medicine home, boil water, and take the medicine. Carefully put the medicine into the innermost layer of your bag, and then lie down to rest. Fortunately, Luo Yuanhang has been busy recently and has neglected her a lot, otherwise she would never have had time to meet Rosen. Rosen. Thinking of him, there was another throbbing pain in my lower abdomen. He turned over in discomfort, thinking that this was not a problem. If he could hand over Suyun to Rosen, he would be freed. But how could he send her to Rosen without anyone noticing? On the bed, no one will find out that she did it. I was tossing and turning and couldn't sleep, so I heard the sound of the door coming from outside. It might be that Luo Yuanhang was back. Afraid that he would notice something strange about her, Zhang Shiwei quickly closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. The bedroom door was pushed open. Luo Yuanhang walked in anyway, and then slowly sat down next to her bed. Even with her eyes closed, Zhang Shiwei could feel him pulling up the quilt, covering her up, and then letting out a faint sigh. Wai Wei, Wai Wei. He called her name softly, called her twice and then stopped hesitantly, as if he was a little hesitant. She pretended not to hear and ignored it. But he did not give up. He paused for a while and continued to call her, Wai Wei, are you asleep? The voice was very soft, but very persistent, and he had the tendency to not stop until he woke her up. Zhang Shiwei had no choice but to pretend to be woken up, rubbed her eyes and yawned, well, you're back. Well, leaning down, Luo Yuanhang hugged her and kissed her on the side of the cheek. Did it disturb you to sleep? Thank you for your hard work. It's okay, I've been sleeping for a while. Zhang Shiwei shook her head and opened her eyes, only to find that his face was not very good, looking tired and irritable. What's the matter? You look at it, you're not happy. With a forced smile, Luo Yuanhang asked, Wai Wei, do you need to adjust the formula of the perfume you gave me before? He asked cautiously, probably because he was afraid that she would be unhappy, but he was obviously unwilling to ask questions. Formula? Zhang Shiwei frowned, puzzled. What's wrong with the formula? Wasn't it good before? Didn't it say there was no problem? Originally, the prepared samples were basically successful, but in the final testing stage, they still failed. The effect of the final product was really unsatisfactory. I am afraid that such a product cannot be used to participate in competitions. In any case, this matter cannot be covered up in the end, so it is better to just say it. It doesn't work? How is it possible? Do you know this formula? I came from. The word stopped abruptly when she thought of something and stopped suddenly. Luo Yuanhang stared at her. From what? I've thought of it a long time ago and have changed it many times. I think there will be no problem with the formula. She made such a strong statement, but she actually didn't know what she was doing. After all, this formula was given to her by Rosen, and Rosen's status and ability made her trust him instinctively and without any doubt. She felt that what he gave must be good and no problem, But now it was obvious that the laboratory could not overcome this obstacle, and she began to murmur in her heart. However, no matter how much he murmurs, Luo Yuanhang must not let Luo Yuanhang know about this matter. Even if he is pretending, he must also pretend to be confident. I also think there will be no problem with the formula, but it has been tried and tested many times, otherwise. The words came to his lips, but he didn't say them out. He really didn't know what to say. It was he who ordered her not to go to the laboratory a few days ago, and now it is he who wants her to go to the laboratory and see for herself. With such back and forth, he couldn't speak to his woman. You want me to go to the laboratory and have a look? After all, we have been together for so long. Even if he didn't say it, Zhang Shiwei understood the meaning. Luo Yuanhang was a little embarrassed, sighed, and shook his head. Forget it. There are so many people in the laboratory, I don't believe that there is no one who can come up with a solution. I'm just asking, are you sure the formula is okay? Then keep trying again, give it a try. It will work. Yuanhang, why do you have to be brave with me? Taking the initiative to grab his hand, Zhang Shiwei said softly, as you said, now we have reached the most critical stage. I should go to the laboratory to take charge of the situation. I wrote this recipe and I know it best. Of course I should personally supervise it and watch it become the final product step by step. In fact, even if you don't tell me, I still want to see it. But your body, there are so many chemicals in the laboratory, you better not go there. He thought about it and felt uneasy. Recently, Wei has pushed him many times for the sake of the child, saying that the fetus is not stable and needs to be taken care of and maintained. He just endures it and really doesn't touch her. At most, he just kisses her. He is ready to be a father and does not want any unnecessary accidents to happen. I'm fine. I can wear a mask, she gestured and said half-jokingly, otherwise, you can prepare a few gas masks for me. You can have this, Luo Yuanhang nodded seriously, approving it. Zhang Shiwei giggled and fell on the bed, idiot. I'm kidding you. Don't worry, I'll only go there for a short while to see what's wrong. Besides, I don't believe our child can be that fragile. No ability to withstand pressure at all. But Luo Yuanhang was still a little worried, but he couldn't resist her stubbornness. If you keep doing this, I'll be angry. Okay, he agreed reluctantly, but you can't force yourself to come. If you feel uncomfortable or tired, leave immediately. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 119. Chapter 119 seems to be trapped in an infinite loop. Regarding the child, Zhang Shiwei has not yet decided how to explain it to Luo Yuanhang after aborting it, although she has made up her mind not to do so. However, the possible problem with the formula gave her an opportunity that allowed her to escape perfectly without making Luo Yuanhang feel guilty and pity. But before that, she made an appointment with Rosen to meet him in a coffee shop. She felt at ease in a public place. Rosen arrived late. He looked not in good spirits and his eyelids were drooped, but at least he was here. Possibly because she already knows very well what kind of person he is, no matter how Zhang Shiwei looks at him now, she always thinks that he is terminally ill. But even if he is going to die, he should be put to good use before he dies. Didn't you say that we haven't had time to see each other less recently? He casually picked out a sugar cube and put it into the coffee cup in front of him, then another, and then another. He put 6 pieces in total, then stopped and stirred them gently with a spoon. Why, you missed me so quickly. A teasing smile escaped from the corners of his lips. He picked up the coffee cup, took a big sip, and then took a breath, looking very satisfied. Zhang Shiwei stared at him without blinking, and waited until he calmed down completely before saying, "Is there something wrong with the formula you gave me?" Her voice was very soft and her speaking speed was also very slow, but her eyes were locked on him and staring at him. "Formula? What formula?" He raised his eyelids, as if he didn't remember what it was about. Seeing her pursed lips and staring at him, Rosen seemed to suddenly remember and suddenly realized, "Oh, you said that thing I gave you last time. That's just a gadget I made casually. I haven't tested it yet. How do I know if there is any problem?" He looked matter of fact, but Zhang Shiwei was so excited that she was furious. "You don't know. You're not sure if there's a problem, so you just leave it to me. You're trying to harm me." She was very angry, but she couldn't get angry. She suppressed her anger and said through gritted teeth, "You clearly know that I will rely on these two formulas to win the award in this year's annual competition. How could you do this to me? I, I paid so much for you." "Tisk, tisk, tisk, are you angry?" Seeing her angry look, Rosen smacked his lips disapprovingly, and even laughed. "Look at you, how can you lose your temper? Isn't it just an annual perfume competition, or are you gorgeous? It's just a small scene within the country, are you taking it so seriously?" Zhang Shiwei was really angry and speechless. To him it may be a small scene, but to her, the meaning is completely different. She had won some awards in the past relying on Su Yun's works, but because of the uncertainty about her ability and the fact that Wulan did not have the qualifications a few years ago, she had not won a national award. This time, in addition to the size of the award, what is more important is to elevate her position in the fragrance industry so that more big shots can see her. This time, she will take the opportunity to ascend to power. Not only will she gain a foothold in the upper class on her own, but she will also want to completely break away from Rosen's control. Of course, she would not say these words to Rosen. The most important thing now is the issue of the perfume formula. "I don't care, there is something wrong with the formula now and it cannot achieve the desired effect. You have to help me. Help me adjust the formula. I want to make it successfully as soon as possible. I am determined to win this competition." Looking out the window, she said firmly. "Okay, no problem. Shall we go to the laboratory now?" He spread his hands with an indifferent look on his face, but he was surprisingly easy to talk to. Unexpectedly, he would agree immediately. Zhang Shiwei was stunned for a moment, and then thought that if he went to the laboratory, Luo Yuanhang would definitely know about it. He already had a prejudice against Rosen and doubted their relationship. "Isn't this very eye-catching?" "No," she frowned, "many people in the laboratory have met you. Even if the perfume is really successful, when the time comes to participate in the competition, there is no guarantee that no one will make a fuss about our relationship." After pondering for a moment, Zhang Shiwei asked, "If you don't go, won't you be able to make adjustments? What if I show you the failed test product?" "It's possible," Rosen nodded, "but the effect is definitely not that good. Maybe I can find the problem right away, but I may not be able to find it even if I try a dozen times. It seems to be trapped in an infinite loop. If he is not allowed to go to the laboratory, he may not be able to find the key to the problem. If the perfume cannot be developed successfully, she cannot participate in the competition, she cannot win the prize, and let her reach the pinnacle of life. But if he is allowed to go, and not Delo Yuanhang's idea is that if the competition uses evidence as a handle, she will also be disqualified from the competition." Putting one hand on the bridge of her nose, she felt very irritated. "Actually." Looking at her, Rosen said slowly, "I have a way, I don't know if you are willing to do it." "What?" Even if there was a chance, she would want to try. "If I remember correctly, your company's laboratory is under your control, right?" Zhang Shiwei nodded. "I'm the director, of course. Although she hasn't been there much recently, at least her title is still there in name." Rosen smiled slightly. Then you have the final say when to go to the laboratory. You mean? Of course there are a lot of people during the day, so it's easy to be discovered, and it's easy to leave evidence, but what about at night? He stopped here and looked at her meaningful smile. Zhang Shiwei quickly understood, as if a knot in his mind was suddenly untied, and his thoughts suddenly became clear. That's right. There are so many people during the day that it is impossible to avoid it, but at night when everyone is off work, she can take Rosen to the laboratory alone. Not only can she find the problem, but he can also make it there himself. With his move, it must be foolproof. Are we still afraid that he will not be successful and won't win the prize? But when she met Rosen's gaze, she couldn't help but feel her heart tremble and feel a little hesitant. I'm just giving you an idea, it's up to you whether you agree or not. Anyway, I want to have a good sleep at night. He folded his hands behind his head and looked indifferent. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I won't stay in Sioux City for long, I will be leaving in the next 2 days. If you need my help, it's best to do it as soon as possible. Zhang Shiwei. She clenched her fingers, weighed the pros and cons and nodded heavily. Okay. Tonight, I will take you to the laboratory. You must help me find the problem. The perfume must succeed and cannot fail. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Ye. Chapter 120. Chapter 120. The whole thing is not suitable for children. Su Yun slept in darkness. It's not because I'm too tired from spending all day in the lab, but after she developed a new field, she discovered that in some aspects, the energy of men and women is inherently different. For example, her husband, Mr. Si, had already gotten up early in the morning to go to the company for a meeting, and she didn't even know when he left. She had a vague impression that he kissed her on the forehead before leaving, but it was only a vague impression. Not really, I remember. I moved my fingers and finally touched the vibrating mobile phone, almost hanging by my ear. Hello. Sister Yun, it's me. It was Arian's voice, which sounded quite refreshing. Well, you're so early, don't you want to get some more rest, she said in a daze, turning over, not wanting to move at all. Morning, Wu Arian looked at the time. It's almost 6 o'clock, is it still early? 6 o'clock. Isn't 6 o'clock early? My brain was still in a state of idleness, and I wanted to hang up the phone the next second. Sister, it's 6 o'clock in the afternoon. You didn't think it was 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Isn't 6 in the afternoon still early? Huh. Consciousness gradually returned to her head, and Su Yun suddenly woke up. How much? 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He seemed to be in disbelief. He picked up his phone and took a closer look. Sure enough, it was almost 6 o'clock in the afternoon. She was stunned for 2 seconds, got out of bed and ran to the window with bare feet, opened the curtains and took a look outside. The shaky sun seemed to laugh at her for wasting a day. What? Did she sleep all day? Sister Yun, you won't sleep from last night until now, right? Although it felt very clear, she still asked more questions. He scratched his hair and sat down on the chair by the window. Even though he knew the time, he still felt very tired. She looked at the red clouds in the sky and breathed a sigh of relief. Forget it, no matter what time it is. What's the matter? Isn't it a holiday today? No, I agreed yesterday to invite Sister Zhao to celebrate together. When will it be? She thought about it in her heart, and suggested that you don't forget it. Su Yun didn't forget it, but she didn't feel in a hurry. I'll give her a call any day and see when she's free. The work in the laboratory is temporarily over. She and Arian can relax a little, but Zhao Xian cannot. She also has the responsibility of the entire department, so she has to work on her own time. Okay, then you can make an appointment. I'll do it at any time anyway. Arian was quite looking forward to it. After all, it was the first big happy event after switching jobs, and it was worth celebrating. Then I'll hang up. Before Soo-yoon could hang up, she heard her say urgently, "Hey." "What?" He put the phone close to his ear again, feeling lazy all over. "Well, yesterday, Mr. Si told me about going on a trip to celebrate. I brought it up on my own initiative. I always felt embarrassed, but I was really looking forward to it." "Did I tell you where to go?" "Well, no. I stood up with a hand, went to the bathroom to wash up, put my phone on speakerphone and put it aside, then squeezed toothpaste, filled the water, and brushed my teeth." With toothpaste bubbles in her mouth, Arian said in surprise, "Huh? You didn't discuss this matter when you went back last night?" "I thought. Go home last night?" Soo-yoon's mind flashed back to the scene when she came back last night, and it was all not suitable for children. Discuss? What to discuss? Where does she have that free time? Where does she have that time? Where does she have that opportunity? Looking at myself in the mirror, the dark circles under my eyes are so obvious, and all the bones in my body seem to have been dismantled and reassembled. There are two obvious big words written on my face: tired. Sister Yoon, are you still listening?" She didn't get a response, not even a hesitant "oh." Arian thought she had died. "Well, yes, you say it," she responded after gargling her mouth and spitting out the foam. "It's nothing, I just want to ask if you have any planned location. I know I don't have the right to ask, but I'm quite happy. It's been a long time since I went out to play. I spend all day in the laboratory and want to go out to play, but I either don't have time or money. It's a rare opportunity to have such an opportunity, and I can't hide my excitement. Why don't you have the right to ask? You went to? Of course you can give me an idea." After wiping her face, Soo-yoon picked up her phone and walked out of the bathroom. "We haven't decided yet. Do you have a suitable place? You can recommend it. You can consider it? Really, not only can I go, but I can also come up with ideas. It's simply wonderful. When did I lie to you?" She touched her belly, which was gurgling now, and she was quite hungry. Sure enough, people are completely unaware when they fall asleep, but when they wake up, their internal organs start to make revolution. "Arian, wait for me, I'll call Zhao Xian. How about we go celebrate now?" Now, she is really resolute and moves at her word. "Do not have time." Arian quickly shook her head. "No, I have time. I'm at home." "Okay, I'll let you know after I call you." Zhao Xian was very happy there. As long as he didn't work overtime, he would still have relatively free time after work, so he agreed immediately. Not only did he agree, but he also actively asked to pay for it and not allow her to rob it. Soo-yoon didn't argue, she would just pay first when the time came. She changed her clothes and went straight to the restaurant. After all, Arian arrived earlier. Zhao Xian had to finish all the company matters before rushing over, so there was a delay in time. This just gave Soo-yoon time to explain to Diane, "Zhao Xian doesn't know about my affairs yet, so don't let it slip." "What's the matter with you?" Arian blinked, and after seeing her glare at him, she immediately reacted, "Oh, you mean that? Don't she know?" Soo-yoon shook her head. "She only knew that I had a boyfriend, but she didn't know who it was. Originally, I didn't plan to tell anyone about it." Seeing that Arian was grinning so much that her teeth were showing, she continued, "If I hadn't happened to meet you yesterday, I still wouldn't have said anything." The half-blooming smile suddenly stopped, and Arian flattened her mouth. "I thought I was special." "You are quite special. Only you know it now." Soo-yoon raised her hand and patted her shoulder. She said seriously, "So, remember to keep it secret." She said this, and Arian became happy again. Well, keep it a secret. She still knew a big secret, a big secret that only she and Soo-yoon shared. This feeling was really good. She suddenly thought about what Lo Eun-hang would look like if he knew who Soo-yeon's new boyfriend was. She was beginning to look forward to that day. End of this chapter.